Hi there and welcome back to the channel. Now in the last video you guys watched me get this thing sort of kind of drivable again. All I really did was put the battery back in, reinstall some of the door rubbers, reinstall part of the dashboard and a seat. And from what you guys saw in that video, by the way, if you haven't, go check it out, I'll link it above. Anyways, as you guys saw in that video, well, there's still much room for improvement, mostly because I still have a scrap ton of parts for that thing lying around, and because now that I had a taste of how fun that thing actually is, I want to start building and modifying it. It's a slippery slope, this. And from the short drive I did take it on, immediately three big problems were apparent. First of which was I really need a bracket to hold my throttle cable. The throttle kept sticking wide open, which was unnerving to say the least. I need to put some seat belts in this thing, and I need to get rid of that seat because that seat it's gross. So I'll steal the seat belts out of this thing. I also probably need to steal this rear view mirror. I should be able to fashion the brackets I need out of this. And then last but not least, we had these bucket seats in storage, and I mean they're not in the best condition, but they're in a hell of a lot better condition than those seats are. So these will do for now. So I need to retrofit the seat belts from that thing, which will be straightforward. I mean, that's an 81 liftback, that's an 81 liftback. It'll go out of that, straight into that, no issue. I gotta fashion the bracket from scratch, and I gotta modify the seats to work because I went to measure them and the bolt patterns are not the same. So I'll see what I'll do there. I need to make them work. But enough talking, I probably need to get to work. So what I've done is I've cut a more manageable piece of that aluminium off, and now I've just got a pencil and I kind of sort of need to figure out what I'm gonna do. As you've probably surmised by now is I'm not a professional, so I'm just sort of learning this as I go along. That actually went much quicker than I expected. I just sort of used, I don't know, logic to try and mark out what needs to be removed, what needs to be cut, where the holes need to be drilled, etc, etc, etc. Now I just need to go remove all the material that I've marked out, and I've got a place to start at. So yeah, that's good, I guess. And there you go. That would be a properly functional bracket for my throttle cable. Now I just need to go sit down, pop some music in my ears and tidy this up because I can't drive around with this thing looking like this. But my phone is about to die, so I think I'll fade to black, and by the miracle of YouTube magic, this thing will be tidy once the color fades back in. And as promised, thanks to YouTube magic, it is finished. Now I just need to pop it in there. Where is it? Make this cable a little bit shorter, and I should have, once again, a working throttle cable. Okay, as you can see there, this throttle cable is currently way too long. So for the time being, what I'm going to do, because I really don't want to go out, remove this, give it in as a sample, and then give specs, and then wait for a new cable to be made. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it, and then use a ferrule or two to splice it back together again at the length that it needs to be. Well, I found one of the reasons why my throttle was sticking. This screw is completely loose. So what's happened is that's vibrated loose, and every time I would open up throttle and this thing would go back, it can't come back because it would hook against this. Yeah, let me tighten that real quick. There you go. I think you can probably see it as well, but I can see what might have been a huge oversight and mistake on my part. So I'm going to try and trim this ferrule a bit, because that part basically is just plastic. So I'm just going to try and trim that up a bit, and then I'm going to test if I have full throttle motion, which I hope it's going to be the case, but there's like a 50% possibility of that not being the case, and that would suck. That's not good. Wait, no, bugger, but maybe. Take out some of the slack. Doubt that's done anything. Hey, sweet. Full throttle, baby. Hell yeah. Okay, so some time has passed. Yesterday I was busy, I started installing those seats, and then I realized that I made an oopsie with this new microphone that I'm using. I had switched it off and forgot to switch it back on again, which means I basically lost all the footage pertaining to what I did to those seats. So I then elected to pack up, leave it for the day, and then continue today. So that's what I'm going to do right now. But before I start with any of the work, I just need to give you guys a quick rundown of what I've done to sort of get to where I am currently. So to try and figure out what I must do, I started by disassembling the passenger seats. With everything disassembled, I was able to measure the bolt pattern on here and then reference that to the bolt pattern on the still assembled driver's side seat. Mainly just because I forgot to measure the bolt pattern on the passenger side seat before I dismantled it, but they are the same, just mirrored. Anyhow, so now I'm left with two halves of a passenger side seat, which, well, both of those are getting chucked, and these seat rails. Luckily, the seat rails on these Corollas are single locking systems, so I won't have any issues with them being sketchy since they are now disconnected from each other, because quite frankly, as you can see here, they never were connected. That is going to make installing those rails on that seat much easier. Also, I'm working in this little area here because today it is crazy windy and I'm trying to hide away from the wind. But back to the seats. This bolt pattern ended up being 35mm too short and 25mm too narrow. So I need to use some of this scrap metal to fix the issue. Luckily, as you can see on this seat rail is nice and tucked underneath the seat, and this seat rail is offset to one side. That means that making the measurements on how I need to cut and drill those pieces of scrap metal much easier, because I only need to compensate for one side needing to be widened. So in other words, for the inside rail, I just need to make an adapter that makes the bolt pattern a bit longer, and then for the outside rail, I need to make the bolt pattern longer and I need to offset it to the outside. Quick tip on doing this, I almost made this mistake myself. Do not disassemble all your seats at once. Pick a side, well, start with the passenger side, because like I said in my previous video, always start on the passenger side when you're doing something. Disassemble the passenger side seats and then leave the driver's side seats intact so you can go back to them, measure them and use them as a reference point so you know what you're doing on the passenger side. Because you missed it because I lost the footage, but it is kind of difficult to disassemble these seats. They're a bit over-engineered, which I mean is good, it makes them a bit more safe, but these parts of the rails need to be grinded off because they're riveted on, not just bolted. So once you've taken them apart, you can't really reassemble them. So there's no going back. So yeah, I'm in for the long run now. There's no going back, so you got to make sure that you do it right from the very start. But enough talking, let's get to measuring so I can start fabbing up what I need to fit the rails to the seat. Okay, so measurements are made. I don't know how well you can see the markings on camera, but here I need to drill a hole, here I need to drill a hole, and here I just need to cut it off. This is a 280mm gap. I need to drill 6mm holes here, and I decided to leave 50mm gaps on each side of the hole just to give some more surface area for the bar so it can really clamp down, sorta kinda. And yeah, not gonna lie, I'm pretty chuffed. It's on, it's installed. I now have one seat rail on this thing. Now I need to tackle the outside seat rail, which is going to be considerably more difficult, but Now, the reason as to why I said that installing the outside rail is going to be more difficult is because I need to offset it outwards by 30 millimeters. The space between this and this is 400 millimeters, and the space between this and this is 430 millimeters. And as you can see, they are offset on the factory seats as well. And to do that, I'm just going to use this angle iron. And basically I need to do the same as I did on this, but instead of having the bolt patterns in line, I just need to have them next to each other, spaced 30 millimeters apart. Yep, that's not gonna work. Didn't work, as you guys saw, and then I got to work on the second plan, and it proved way more annoying than I expected. And then I sort of got in a groove, I'll call it. Forgot to record, but things do appear to be on currently. So you guys get to join me in checking if this thing actually fits. If it doesn't, I will be sad. Very sad. It's in, but as you can see, it is way too high up. I've got two fingers between me and the door and the roof, and if this were on the driver's side, my knees would be inside of the steering wheel. I just wasted a solid day. On the bright side, at least I now have some decent solid measurements because the seat does fit. That means I successfully adapted the bolt pattern, but it's way too high. So I'm gonna hit up some people that have a laser cutter, or it's a water jet cutter. Anyways, they have a big machine and you put measurements into a computer. Excuse the wires, by the way, for the lav mic. There's 6 meters for this thing. It's dreadful. Anyways, so what they have this machine, and you put the measurements into the machine, and you put some metal onto the machine, and then it cuts the metal into the shape that you need it. I'm going to phone them, give them my measurements, and have them cut up the plates I need. Yeah, as bummed, self-admittedly bummed as I am right now, I really don't want to end this video on a negative note. So I've started the thing up. So at least, before I end the video, we can check if that bracket I made for the throttle cable has worked. Okay, so at least something good came from today. The bracket I made works like a charm. So, I guess that's me for today. Yeah, please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video where either I fix the seat, or, depending on what I post first, obviously, or I will be heading to Kyalami to do the Audi driving experience. Well, rather I did that yesterday. I'm still a bit torn over which video I will post first. So yeah, I'll see you guys in whichever video I post first. Cheers.